Hello and welcome back to another video where today we will be asking the question, will we see Peter Parker in Spider-Man Miles Morales? So back when the game was announced, people was wondering, is Peter Parker dead? But Insomniac had to come out and confirm that no, Peter Parker is very much alive. So without any further ado, let's get into the theories. So this first one is one that I believe, and yes, we will see Peter Parker, and we'll see him at the beginning of the game, as at the end of the Silver Lining DLC there is a end credit cutscene that shows Peter training Miles to swing, and I think that will be the first cutscene in Spider-Man Miles Morales, as when Miles jumps off, the camera will go behind him and then you can start web swinging as Miles, and then after that maybe we'll have like a conversation with Peter, maybe on a rooftop, and then there might be like a training montage of Peter training Miles over the course of a year, and then once the montage is done, Peter will say, Miles, I have to go away for a bit. We'll get into the reasons why later, and then that's why Miles has to defend New York by himself, because I expect if Peter Parker was in the city, he would definitely help out in stopping the underground and the war between Rockton and the underground, and he would definitely try and find out who the Tinkerer is, and he'd probably have Mary Jane help out as well. So to me, this is the most likely one where yes, we will see him, at least in like a small cameo form, probably the beginning and most likely the end, where he might come back and say, well done Miles, you've done really good, I've seen what happened, or maybe he won't even know what happened, and I would say, oh, what have I missed, and then Miles would say, everything that's gone down. So for this next theory, I am going to be theorising about who the Tinkerer may be. Now, I personally think that yes, the Tinkerer will be Yuri Watanabe, and I think once Peter gets wind of it, if he's not in the city, he will definitely come back to try and get Yuri back to the good side. Even though she's not like a bad guy per se, she's still like stealing stuff, and especially if we saw what she did back in Silver Lining, where she was leaving bodies for Peter to find, and most people thought she was going to be the Wraith, but there's a chance that she could have joined or started the underground and turned into this universe's version of the Tinkerer. But I think that the Tinkerer will not be the main villain of the game, just like with Spider-Man PS4, where the marketing had you believe that Martin Lee was going to be the main guy, and then in the end it turned out to be Otto Octavius. I think the main bad guy will be none other than Aaron Davis, the Prowler, Miles Morales' uncle, as there is a description underneath one of the pictures on, I believe, the PlayStation website that says it's going to be an emotional story, and maybe if someone close to Miles dies, like it could be Rio, could be Genki, but I think it would make sense to have Aaron, and it will kind of be like an Into the Spider-Verse moment again. Like I think they're going to be drawing not heavily from it, but the version of Miles they're going to have from now on will be like have links to Into the Spider-Verse Miles, where they're like similar in personality and stuff, and there definitely will be an Into the Spider-Verse suit. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the second pre-order bonus suit, as the first one was the tracksuit. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if the second one is an Into the Spider-Verse suit, because once the picture was first put up, that had all the pre-order bonus stuff. If you scroll down, it had Copyright Marvel and then Into the Spider-Verse, but that's been taken off now, so it makes people think that yeah, it is going to be an Into the Spider-Verse suit. But will it be the one he has the end of the film, or maybe the one he brought in the comic book store, or would it be the one with the hoodie? I personally hope that all three suits are in the game, because I think they look really cool. Okay, going back to theories of where I think Peter Parker may be, there's a chance that he could be in Symkaria with MJ. As we know, in the Silver Lining DLC, Mary Jane was going to Symkaria for a story, and Peter was saying maybe he should join her. So maybe after he's trained Miles, maybe for like a year, and if Mary Jane is still over there, he would have gone and joined her. Now this would make sense in context of the Marvel PS4 story, as at the end, like I said, MJ went to Samkaria, Peter said he was going to join her, and he also knew that if he was going to go, he would have need to train Miles, so someone could defend the city. So what other chance to train Miles up, and then once Peter feels like he's ready, he can go and be in some car with MJ, and he probably wouldn't think much would happen. And then when he comes back, he might be okay. He probably won't see him as a sidekick anymore. He'll probably see him as like more of an equal, as he's had to like defend the city from literally whatever is gonna happen in Miles Morales, like the underground, and there's gonna be like a war between Roxxon and the underground. And if the Prowler is in the game and Miles reveals that it is his uncle, I think Miles will feel quite disappointed, just like he did in Into the Spider-Verse, and he'll probably ask him, why wasn't you at the funeral, and stuff like that, because maybe Aaron's been out of the city for like ages doing underground stuff, maybe like recruiting members. Maybe Aaron Davis founded the underground, and when he heard about Yuri going off the rails, he thought, I'll see if I can make her join. And of course she did, because he probably bribed her with like tech and saying, oh, I can protect you from Spider-Man and stuff like that. Maybe he also said that he could help her take down the Magia, as we know in the DLC to Spider-Man PS4, that was Yuri's one goal. Or maybe he's blackmailing her into it by saying, if you don't join, maybe she'll kill someone she loves, like maybe her father, or someone really close to her. Now, this next theory is a bit of a stretch, but maybe the reason Peter Parker isn't in the city is because he has taken part in the Spider-Geddon comic crossover. For those of you who don't know, Spider-Geddon is a comic book that released in 2018, and it literally crossed over quite a lot of Spider-Men, and the two people who pretty much were the basis of it was PS4 Spider-Man and Superior Spider-Man. Those of you who don't know, Superior Spider-Man is Peter Parker, who has Otto Octavius's brain, and in the comic, when PS4 Peter finds out, you can imagine that he's quite angry, as he's dealt with an Otto Octavius in his universe, and now he's working with one, so he isn't too pleased. But if Marvel wanted to go down that route, they could have him say he's away in the Spider-Geddon storyline, but I don't think this will happen, because, well, maybe if Marvel want to say it's canon, they can, but maybe there's a gap between the release of Miles Morales and the release of Spider-Man 2. They could say, oh yeah, Peter was doing it then, but then they'd have to retcon. I'm not quite sure. It probably is canon to the PS4 Marvel universe, but whether Insomniac want to say that's how Peter is, it's up to them. But I do not think that is where Peter Parker is during Miles Morales. And now we're moving on to the final theory, and to me it is the obvious one that I think Insomniac Games will choose, and it is that Peter Parker, Spider-Man, is working with the Avengers. And we know that Spider-Man is getting a story DLC in the Avengers game. When that was first announced, I was like, that's probably where he's going to be. Now, maybe the storyline will actually tie in everything I've said in this video, where Peter, once he's trained Miles for a year, goes to Samkaria to see MJ, and then that's where the Avengers are, and then like something big goes down, and they say, Spider-Man, can you help? And he can't really fly back to New York to help Miles because he's with the Avengers, and the Avengers for that will probably be like a bigger one, as like Avengers threats normally are in the films. And this could be his first chance to actually work with them, which is something maybe he wanted for ages, and maybe he's seen the Avengers Tower in the New York skyline, and he'd like wanted to become a member, and this could be his way in. So he would have to let Miles deal with it on his own. And perhaps maybe when Peter comes back, Miles doesn't know what Peter was doing with the Avengers in Samkara. He just thought he was having a vacation. Then when like Miles says, "Oh, where have you been?" He could have like maybe like be quite angry because said, "You could have helped. You left me to do this on my own." And then when Peter explains, he could maybe like understand it, and then maybe he could like fanboy over the Avengers, because that seems like something that Miles would do as he's like 16 at this point. But yeah, that's personally, I think, the most obvious choice of where Peter Parker is over the course of Miles Morales. And that's all I have for this video. If you liked it, please give it a big thumbs up and subscribe, and I will see you in another video.